Hello, this is the continuation of our divorce episode. Our apologies, we had some audio issues. If you haven't already, please follow, share, and comment. You can do that via Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and our website. They all can be found under Kevin Lil. Have we met? Please enjoy this episode.
Hello, this is Kev.
And Lil. We're discussing relationships in all of its forms and everything in between.
We've been together close to 30 years. We've seen some things together and apart.
So if you want to laugh or need advice, come and spend some time with Kev and Lil. Have we met?
Hello, everybody. Okay, so we are back with Dee. We had so much fun with her the first time. We figured why not have her tell more of her story.
This is divorce part 2.
Yeah, so to speak, and literally, actually. So yeah, Dee. Tell us about what occurred, after the first divorce.
So we had been together so long. We had been together for 18 years. And when I had met him, I was only 17 years old. So I took a lot of time for me. It was about 2 years. I didn't date. I didn't go out. I was in therapy. I was in the gym. I was reading books. I was crying. I was reflecting. I was trying to get my life together, take care of my son. And it was really, brutal, therapeutic, but like necessary, because I think sometimes the easier thing is to just kind of like put a band-aid on it, right? Like they just say the best way to get over someone is to get under someone, but that doesn't really take your problems away. So by the time I was ready to date, or so I thought, in a few years, it was kind of funny because at that point I was 37 and I had not dated since I was 17. So
Wow.
I was not a good dater. I was very naive. I started like online dating and I would be open. But, according to my friends, if people approach me, I'm very friendly. But I was just kind of putting men like, I guess, my arm up, like, let's keep it going. So I was just kind of doing my thing for a couple years. And then I was open after 2 years to just putting myself out there. And I was definitely in a much better headspace.
Cool.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I remember talking to your ex-husband, and the first one at least, and I remember him telling me, "Yeah, you believe this? She's already dating. I know she was messing around before." And I'm like, "No, no, stop that already. That's not true."
Jeez,
You know,
2 years later,
I mean, talk
get
about
over
a talk
yourself.
about a toxic relationship. Holy crap. And and I was trying to, at least from my point of view, I was going, hey, what did you expect her to do? You guys are divorced, if not getting divorced. There's no sight of that. You certainly didn't leave the door open with what you said and the way you've been acting
It wasn't
since.
amicable. It's not like she could
Oh my
still be
goodness.
friends with him.
This
It was
this
not
guy,
amicable.
it was wow. It was, and all I kept thinking was, holy crap, if I'm feeling this way and it's getting on my nerves,
Mm.
I could only imagine what you were going through. It was just
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that was his big thing. It was always like, are you with other guys? And that's really what broke us up, was his jealousy and his insecurity. And, in my head, I was like, God, I wish I was having all this sex, but, I mean,
yeah,
with
baby.
another person at least. But
Yeah.
it honestly was funny because he was so jealous and we really were, so close together for so many years. And he actually started dating somebody probably about 6 months after.
I
And I
remember that.
remember
I do remember that.
and I remember thinking, because I had always been the kind of person like, what's mine is mine. I always trusted him. I wasn't insecure, but, that's mine,
Mhm.
And I remember going to a basketball game of my son and seeing the person. And I remember thinking, I felt no feelings. I didn't feel anything, anything. And
That's when you
that
know it
was
was
my,
over.
oh my gosh. Yes. because I didn't feel anything. And then very soon after that, like after I had no reaction, he kind of let that go by the wayside. So in hindsight, I really think that was more to see if he'd get a rise out of me. Because obviously over the years he'd be like, "Will you come back?" After he would be pretty brutal and then be like, "Oh, do you want to get back?" And I'm like, "No, I think I'm good. I'm gonna pass.
Crazy.
I wish you would die. You want to get back together?" No, I'm like, no,
Yeah,
women
it
don't really
was.
like when you say that.
Yeah, it was. It's like I said. It was some of the stuff he would say was just so freaking harsh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't. I couldn't stomach it at times. And I would say to him, I'm like, what are what are you doing, dude? What? And this was even during the relationship that he would say
Mhm.
stuff. Um,
Well, we can't ask her if she was going to marry again because you actually did meet someone
right.
I did.
after.
So I did not have in my mindset like I wanted to get married, but even like going back to when I was a young girl, I know a lot of women are always like, "Oh my God, my wedding." I was never that kind of girl. Like I always was like, I want an education, I want to travel the world. So I was happy in my marriage and I was happy to have a family, but it was never like eye on the prize of marriage. So I was a little different like that. So once again, I'm out there horribly dating because I was not very good at it. And I would date here and there, but I'm the kind of person like I'm dating with purpose, right? Like
Mm.
I want a person that's going to be my best friend, that is kind and we have great chemistry. I want an all in one. I don't want to find this really handsome guy and then, oh, wow, there's another guy who's got great chemistry. Oh, and that guy's funny. I want an all in one or I'll just kind of work on me. And I met somebody a few years later. So it's probably about 3 years after the divorce. And he was really kind and very different than my son's dad. And we dated and I didn't really think a lot about the dating. And we ended up dating for about 3 months. My first marriage was exciting. And even though at the end it was very toxic, is what it was. And I think I was young and I didn't realize it
Mhm.
wasn't healthy, but it was exciting. And this was so calm. I remember thinking, oh, it's not supposed to be that, right? This is probably what it's supposed to be. And even during this time, I remember once I was at the baseball game with the new boyfriend, and my ex was there across the field, and he sends me a text, like a very dirty, inappropriate text. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I'm across the baseball field, like lifting my hands, like, seriously. And he just wouldn't let up. And I ended up probably dating him about 3 years. And we were on a trip in Boston. And out of the blue, we were at a concert and I really loved this band. And he's like, "Do you want to get married?" And I think I was just caught up in the music. I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it. And in retrospect, not a good idea. Not a good idea. But I love a good band. And we got married, and funny, not funny. I mean, our relationship was so even keel. He was so kind. He had a great job. He traveled the world. He
So
was
it was the total opposite of your
total
first.
opposite. But how life will be, right? Life is very funny. So I got married. I was only married for 8 months. So as soon as I got married, he did this complete 180 and was totally different and distant and odd. And I'm like, what the heck? And I
Mhm.
remember telling him, something must be up. You're off. Like, what is going on? And long story short, I ended up finding out many years before I had met him, he had had a drug addiction and he never shared. And when you're dating someone, you're asking all those questions, right? Like, if you've been married, you ever been arrested, you ever do drugs, like, you're asking. So he wasn't honest and he
Mm.
certainly wasn't doing them while we were dating. And I think it just was an addiction. And he started back up and it wasn't like he wasn't smoking weed. He was doing cocaine. And here's a guy who made a lot of money. He had a great career. And I was like, this is not for me. I've got a child and a job. And so I helped him get into rehab. And I said, let's get divorced. And he was so kind. And, in hindsight, he was like, listen, I just didn't feel like I was in your category. And I kind of was like, shooting the bar high for you. He goes, and I just started up with this pressure. And I thought when we got married, it would be chill. But I'm like, no, when you get married, then you really have expectations. You're my partner. So he really would have been a good friend. I shouldn't have accepted that engagement. And, he was just so generous, even with that divorce. And I always tell him, you're my nicest ex husband. But, it certainly wasn't for me, that's for sure. But, we left on good terms. But I mean, again, I really kind of got snowed by that. And I think that's part of the blessing of my personality is like I see the good in people, but also, part of it is like you believe that they're too good. And I learned a lot in those years, and through the hardship, I really learned a lot of lessons.
That's good.
Okay.
Well, will you marry again?
It's a great question. I don't desire it, but I don't run from it. And I also, one thing I do really great is I never hold anything that's happened against anyone else.
That's
Because
awesome.
I feel like, just like me, like I've got a good heart, I've got a great career, I'm in a good spot in my life. My son is graduating college, I put him through school. I'm a good person that has had some bad relationships. So I think there's a lot of single people that have gone through some things and they're good people, and some of them don't put themselves out there. Some of them get really jaded and bitter, and that's one thing I'm not and I wouldn't do. I'm an optimist. I feel like there's a lot of good in the world. I believe in love. I love good love stories. I love great couples. But I also, as a single person, see a lot of my friends that are married that aren't really happy. And I can name on one hand like some of the great couples. You guys are one of them. I've got a lot of friends that are great couples, and it's not always easy, and it doesn't look a certain way. It's certainly not perfect, but it's genuine, it's supportive. I know a lot of people that are married that, they're having relationships outside of their marriage, or they disrespect their partners and things. To me, like, I would so much rather be single and know that no one is disrespecting me or anything like that. And if I'm with the right person, you're not going to endure that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
listen, it's not perfect and we never know what's going to happen, but I'm always open to anything.
That's awesome. That's a great state of
Well,
mind to have.
with the second one, with the second marriage, are you still friends with this guy? I meant to
No,
ask you
so
that.
my thing is this, I'm friendly, not friends, right? Like, I think when I would have loved to have more of a friendship with my son's dad because we were together for 18 years and we really were friends. Like, I loved his personality. We had fun together, but he's just so bitter, Betty, we couldn't, and it would have been great for my son. He's graduating college to be like, hey, joke, like, he's remarried and I'm so good with that. That I would have liked, but I feel like that second one, like 4 years. And I think whenever you leave something, I'm really good at closing the chapter, because I think when I do find my person, nobody needs like 50 open books strewn on the floor, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm done, we close it. I ran into him, it's funny, I hadn't seen him in years, and I was down in Miami at a play, and he happened to be in a restaurant I walked into, and shouted across the restaurant and told the owner, oh my God, this was like my ex-wife. She's so amazing. And I was like, well, I'll keep my story inside.
Yeah, that's a heck of a story.
Yeah.
It really is.
But my thing is, I love, like you said, you don't take it with you. You just let it go. And you still, you have great friendships. Um, I'm assuming you're dating, and you're traveling, you're doing your thing. You're not letting anything or anyone hold you back.
Yeah, I love it. I am open to dating. I definitely go out, but like I say, I date with purpose, right? And my things that I look for are somebody that you can have a great conversation with, and back and forth. It's not one way. You can talk about anything. You can talk about life, music, travel, the world, and they're fun and they're kind-hearted, and you got to have chemistry, because you could be a great guy, but if there's no chemistry, and you can't really determine that. So I will go out on dates. Luckily I get asked out on dates. That's a good thing. And I go out if I feel like there's potential, but I really have no expectations, and let's just go and see how it goes. But I'm really good about within a date or two tops of knowing, is there potential here or not? So I'll say I've been single, for the past few years in terms of nothing long term. And it's such a good space. I know women, especially, sometimes we get caught up in like, I'm not seeing someone, or the holidays come, but I just see it as like, this is just a really great period for me, because if I meet someone, I would love that. But your dynamic shifts, right? And they become more of your priority in your time. So when do you get time to go and travel the world alone, or go out, every weekend and have brunch with your friends, or just do nothing on a Saturday if you don't even want to do the laundry and nobody says anything because you're just doing your thing? So instead of me worrying or thinking or wondering, I'm just kind of like enjoying where I'm at. And I feel like when you're in a good space, like, you attract the right vibe, and it'll come when it's supposed to. But if not, I'm also okay with that. I've had love, I've had marriages, I've had a son, I've had a career, and it's okay if that's what I've had. And then, maybe I'll just have great love affairs till I die. And that's okay too. That's
Go,
good. I'm not
girl.
mad at it.
Mm.
Okay. It sounds like a conversation you two should just have. But no. So you said that, you've been dating, but so how have you been meeting people? Like, is it
So,
just because?
well, I meet people all over, but I work in a more like female dominated industry. So, and I also don't believe in mixing work with dating. So even if I did, I try to veer away from that. So I'm always open in public, but I'm also, if I'm out in public, I also focus, like if I'm out with friends, I focus on my friends. If I'm, doing an event, like I focus on that. So I have met people out in public. But I do think, like, I remember one of the podcasts you guys did talking about like meeting when you went out at the club. Like, that's not as common anymore. So I
Right.
also do online dating, and I love the aspect of the ease, right? Because of my schedule and the work. But I also think because it's so accessible, it makes people not be as much in the moment and get to know someone, because I kind of like to say, hey, listen, I'm going to cast this wide net. But if I find someone that interests me, I like to zero in on that person. And that doesn't mean like, oh my gosh, we have one date and I'm not dating anyone else. But I do like to say, if I like you, I don't want to kind of shift my mind to multiple people, because am I really getting to know you and seeing if it works or not? And I know that's a little different, and if you lock in, that's one thing. And you always, communication is key in dating, right? Like, you want to make sure, like, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? If you're thinking I'm just dating you, that's important to say that. And you can't infer or assume. You have to communicate. It's also timing, and I think the people that are out there, it's just a different time. Dating's interesting, but I think it's fascinating because I love people. So I've met guys that are so not for me, but they're cool guys. I've met guys that are so out there, and I just think like, wow, you're fascinating. Definitely not for me, but that, like, I'm gonna ask questions because this is like insane. And then I've just meet all sorts of guys, and I think that's cool, because you got to think about it. I didn't date as a teenager. I didn't date in my 20s, because I literally met my son's dad as a teenager, and then we dated and married. So I didn't have that opportunity. So I think I'm a little backwards in a lot of ways in life.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask this. Um, if you don't want to answer it, or if you don't want to give, certainly don't give names. But so, what's been the weirdest or most interesting date you've been on?
Okay, this is a great one. So great as in interesting. So I was out at a sports bar, And I had met this guy, and he was a very attractive man, a very polite man. And we started talking, and he asked me out, but he wasn't living here. He was down for a sporting event and wanted to go out and grab dinner. So we ended up going out, grabbing dinner was appropriate. As we're talking, I find out what he does. He's a priest. Okay. Obviously, the kind of priest that can date, right?
Mhm.
So
Okay.
I'm like, fascinating, kind of odd. I go to church, so I thought this is kind of weird, but again, I'm interested. So let's see how this rolls. Such an appropriate date, such a gentleman. I leave the date. As soon as I leave the date, he ends up texting me, "Hey, did you notice that guy was checking you out all night?" And I'm like, "What guy? What do you even mean?" He's like, "That was so hot." So long story short, it's a priest that's into cuckolding and wanting your girl to date other
Ah,
men and liking the other men liking you and wanting to
Oh.
buy you gifts. And I thought, well, if that isn't the most odd and bizarre
yeah.
situation
You
I've
like to
ever
That
watch?
seen.
Is that what
that
it
is
was?
a niche fetish. That's what that is.
Yes. So he was like handsome, he was appropriate in conversation, nothing inappropriate on the date. And the minute I left, I thought, well, all right, well, not for me, but thank you for the date.
Wow, that's
Oh man,
crazy.
that is.
Yeah, there's a lot of weird things out there. Like you said, you didn't experience dating, so you didn't know the different crazies.
No.
So
And I
now
never,
you're
and
starting to catch up.
right. And the other thing that's interesting is because, I have a son in college, right? And the other weird thing is these very young men that shoot their shot at you. And I'm like, you wonder, like, are you looking for someone that's successful? Are you looking for the sexual aspect? But it's very bizarre, especially as the mother of a college student. And my key line that I always say if they try to reach out or flirt, I always say, "Oh my God, is your dad single?" And that kind of shuts it down really quick. And I think it's clever. And sometimes they'll say yes, but I'm not sharing the info. And I'm like, don't hold back. Like, dad's got more money and, you're pretty handsome at this age. So I'm sure dad's looking good. So, but
Mhm.
it deters it. But, I'm sure, listen, to each his own. But I certainly don't think a man in his 20s is ready to handle a woman like me.
No, they just want a cougar. They want an
Yeah,
older
no,
woman
thank
to
you.
have experience.
They
I'm
want
like, no,
the
I'm not here to teach you, honey. I did
notch.
that in the
That's all
past.
it
I
is.
was a teacher back in the day.
They
Right.
want the notch on the bedpost, pretty much. No, but you can always say to them, you go, "Oh, that's so cute. Didn't your balls just drop though?" I mean, seriously. No, seriously. I mean, come on. If you cough, will they go back up? I mean, I don't know.
You're so
I've
nasty.
wondered have they both descended?
Oh my God. I couldn't say that, but
Um, I forget it. I could say it all. I got no problem with it. But yeah, because I know you had mentioned that one guy before you had mentioned it in the past or the last time we had spoken when we were down there that one of the I we won't even say who they were, but that one of the associates, let's just say, of your son,
oh
he
yeah.
tried to flirt, and your son wasn't exactly happy about it. I know that.
No, no.
Uh,
A- And it's one of those things, and when you're a mom, like you're so close to your kid, and you're even when they're grown, because he's technically, when they're in college, and you guys have grown men, for sons, they're men, but as a mom, they're still children, right?
oh
And they're
yeah,
still
They'll
young.
always be my little boys.
oh yeah.
Right. So you have a much different perspective, and maybe a woman my age that never had children might feel differently. And listen, to each his own. It's just not my circus, not my monkeys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
I
always
understand.
like that phrase. I always appreciated that phrase. But it looks good. I mean, I probably should have prefaced everything with stating that how you're in such a much better place now. Just
Mhm.
Mm.
it's more, you're more at peace, I guess. You're
And let's face it, she had the she had the strength to do it, because a lot of women are still stuck.
Twice.
You know, but the
Twice.
thing is, you had the knowledge and the strength to do what you had to do. And I'm so happy that you know, you were so mentally healthy that you were like, yeah, I mean, even though I have a child with this man or whatever, or what are people going to say? This is my second divorce. You know what? Screw that. Screw what anybody and everybody thinks or says.
Yeah.
You did the right thing for you.
Yeah.
And it
And-
works because you're awesome.
Well, I appreciate that, but I'm going to tell you, when I look back to that period, there's a lot of like, I think ignorance is bliss, right? Like I knew in my heart like what it should be, what feels right, you know, and I grew up Catholic, so it's like, you know, you get married, you stay married, and then I started having these epiphanies of like everyone deserves to be uplifted and valued, and I just worked overtime to make him better and to pour into his cup. And I really did experience a lot of financial hardship because of that decision. It took a big emotional toll on me because I still loved him, you know, and I just think that I didn't know any better, and I just knew to keep going forward and day by day get better. And now when I look back on it, I am peace is really what it is, and I see a lot of women that struggle, and I'm sure men do too, but because I'm a woman, I talk to a lot of women, and they don't make the jump, you know. And I do know men that are unhappy in their marriages, or you know, I've met men that flirt, and I'll never go out with a married man nor talk to one that I'm aware of, you know what I mean? But to me, I always say, and I'll even say that if men approach me, you you might be unhappy, but then you need to be honest and have integrity,
Mhm.
and, you know, speak to your partner, and, you know, you need to do the hard work. And listen, like, you know, there was a lot of work that went into feeling peaceful, but knowing that, you know, I'm self-sufficient, knowing that I can pay my bills on my own, knowing that I've dug myself out of some financial things because of me walking away. Because I was a person that had money in the bank, I owned my own home, I did all these things, and he came after those and damaged that. So it wasn't even like I had that built because of my marriage. I had that built before my marriage and lost that because of the choice. And, you know, it was all worth it. You know, when I look back now, I matured. I had such growth, but peace is really it, Kevin. And, you know, no matter what happens, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm good either way. And I know I feel really happy, and I feel like I'm open to relationships. I'm open to being single, but I really love this space in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're enjoying this time.
Yes.
You know, it's
Yeah.
and it's one of those phrases you probably hear more and more nowadays, is just you're living in the moment, or you're in the
Yeah.
moment, instead of looking at it through a lens,
Mhm.
you're actually there and you're going, you know what, I'm good with what I am right now. If something else comes along, that's fantastic, but it's not something I'm searching for, or I need to be better or feel better.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that people make a mistake on, especially even people in marriages, right? Like my ex was always like, "You make me happy. You." And I said, "Nobody can make you happy, because if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, you know, what are you going to do?"
Yeah.
And we have to make ourselves happy.
Oh,
And I
yes.
remember when I was getting divorced, I even asked my therapist, "What is a healthy relationship?" And she's like, "You're fully whole and they're fully whole, and you need nothing from each other. You only add to each other's lives." And I said, "That's so simple." And she says, "Exactly. That's what
Mhm.
it's supposed to be." And literally, I live like that now. When I meet men, I'm like, my first question is, are they fully whole? So if they're still broken or dealing with stuff, that doesn't mean they're not good men. They're just not ready to enter into a relationship, because they have to really kind of take care of what's going on with them. And same with women.
Yeah, because if you think about it, if you were the only one that made him happy, so that means he wasn't happy. So, like you said, you were giving, and your cup, you were filling up his cup, but he wasn't reciprocating. Like he wasn't happy. How's he going to make you happy?
And
Yeah.
I just loved him so much. And I think that's part of being young. And I'm a giver. So when I'm doing things for you, it's like my love language. I'm happy. If I can do things for you, I'm happy. I'm like a servant leader in life. Like that's my joy. And I read a quote somewhere. It's like, just because I'm like low maintenance doesn't mean I don't require anything, right? And because I don't need a lot of things to bring me joy, right? Like I like the simple things. I like quality time with the people that matter. I like reading a book. I like traveling. I like being by the ocean. And I just do the things that make my heart happy. And that's not contingent on anyone, because if all of a sudden a certain person's removed from my life, am I not joyful? So that was a lot of work to get to that spot. And you got to figure, I live with my family, I lived with my husband. I didn't stay alone in my home until I was 35 years old. The first time I stayed home alone, every little noise, I was like, oh my God. I remember my toilet broke and I had to watch this YouTube video and I fixed the little flapper and I went to Home Depot, and I have a master's degree and I did not feel joy or mastery when I got it. I didn't feel accomplished. But when I fixed this toilet,
That's right.
I felt like, hold
Miss
my beer.
Independence.
I am a badass woman. But those are the simple pleasures and joys of like I'm okay. And the
Mhm.
same thing, I solo travel a lot, and my ex was very um protective and almost like hovering, and if I would walk with him, stand here, don't do this, like something was always going to happen. So you got to imagine the first time I got on a plane alone, and then the first time I left the country alone, and now I traveled to multiple countries alone, and planes and trains and automobiles. And again, I'm safe, I'm aware. I grew up with two brothers that were ex special forces in the military. I watch my surroundings, but
Mhm.
I'm not afraid to live my life, you know?
Good for you. Good for you.
Mhm.
And you meet so many wonderful people like that.
I do. And
Yeah.
people who have had really cool stories, right? Like people that have been married a long time, people that have had miserable situations, and like I just love people and I love hearing their stories. So, and I think because I'm just such an open book, they just want to tell me stuff and I love it.
You should write a travel memoir.
That's actually
Yeah,
not a bad idea.
if I
I
get a
would buy
moment.
it.
Or not even write it, just start recording it. And then
Yeah.
when the time comes, you can
Yeah.
always refer back to it.
Take like a travel journal or
Yeah.
travel notebook with you when you
Just
travel.
record it.
Write down
You
these
got
all
your
these
phone, you can record it on your phone
phone. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because and take it
I
as
would
notes.
definitely. I love all those wonderful stories. I would definitely buy it if you would buy write a travel
I could put
memoir.
it on my list of things to do.
There you go.
Yeah, you know.
And then you could write off all your travels.
Well, that's smart. That's a
That's
businesswoman.
actually not a bad idea either. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Find the loophole.
I'm not just a pretty face.
I love it.
You know, I was looking at this at my notes, and because you mentioned a quote, and one of the quotes I found as well was, you know, the biggest lie we're told is be with someone who makes you happy. And the truth is, happiness is something you create on your own. Be with
Mhm.
someone who adds to it.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a funny sometimes, you know, and it always goes back to, you know, you can't look at things in the past as, oh my God, technical difficulties. But as I was saying, you know, which I've repeated this number of times is, you know, you always feel like, oh, you know, some people feel that they've wasted time with things, but it just winds up being another lesson. And now again, you know what not to look for, and you know what you want. You
And it
know,
made you who you are. All your experiences make you who you are. So it's not a waste of time.
no, not at all.
Yeah, I don't have any negative feelings about any of it. I'm happy. I met my first husband. He gave me my son. And I learned so much through both of these. And I feel like every person, every experience.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
All right. Well, honestly, there wasn't much more we had from our side. I know you have to get ready for your trip,
He's
so we don't want to keep you up too much longer. Especially, I think you said you're working tomorrow and then you're heading out. Um,
jet lag. Oh.
But thank you for joining us,
Yes.
and thank you for telling your truth, as some people would put it, or definitely your story. And it's still ongoing. You're still writing it. Whether it's your travel story or being a mom, and who knows down the line, again, down the line of being maybe a grandma or something. But again, that's down the line because we ain't in no rush, right?
Nope.
I know we weren't, but things happen. And again, you look like you're in a great place. You look more. Again, I keep going to the word peace, just because you feel peace. You seem that you're at peace with things, and
Mhm.
you're definitely more. I wouldn't say open, but just you let things slide, not slide, but you let it roll off your back more, so to speak. It's not something that's stressing you out as much.
No.
Mm. I think we get older, and I think we realize matters. And I think we realize what doesn't matter. And I think, we all can control what we can control, right? So worry is a wasted emotion. You don't want to think about the things that can happen. You just want to be in the moment and control your reaction to things and your work and, the effort you put into things. And, if you're in a relationship that doesn't make you happy, you don't have to be there. And if you're in a job you don't like, you don't have to do it. So it doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater and you're always running from things, but you have to listen to yourself. And if it's not worth it, you got to be true to yourself and make sure you're happy. And then you're going to be the best partner, the best employee, the best mom. When you're happy, you're at your best.
Yes. Amen to that. Well, no, I have nothing to say. I think everything was perfect. And you have a great trip.
Thank
We're
you.
going to live vicariously through you.
I'll send my pictures.
Yes.
I can tell you this. Some of the feedback I got from the first part of this, of speaking with you, I had one person, that I said, "Oh, have you listened to the episodes yet?" And they actually had said to me, "Yeah, actually, the recent episode that you had, the divorce episode, helped me a lot." I said, "Oh, really?" And I had no idea, but they had just signed their papers.
Uh,
Yeah,
it,
they
it
had
goes,
just signed their papers, and
yeah.
I get, and then for me, I didn't know whether to say, "Oh, I'm sorry," or "Yippee,"
Congratulations.
So I said, all I could say was, "Wow," because I had
Glad
no idea either.
Yeah.
So
But I think so many people go through the same things and you don't always kind of vocalize it or verbalize it. And in the beginning, I don't know that I could even wrap my mind around what was happening. You're just in it. And I think the further you just kind of one foot in front of the other, one step at a time, you go forward. And then finally you're so far beyond it that it's in the rear view and you can really reflect on it. So I always say, when people are going through things now, gosh, I wish I had a me at that time to kind of say it's going to be okay. Cause I have a really good girlfriend. And I said, this is going to take you at least 2 years. You got to process. And it's not, you don't want to rush it. You want to heal. And she's a super woman, super mom, powerful job. And oh, not me, not me. I said, all of us, it hits all of us. So, we all go through it. And divorce is not easy,
yeah.
but there's hope.
It's good to know that other people go through it too. You're not alone. So
No,
I'm
you're not.
glad that this podcast helps people, and that's why we're doing it.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
it helps that you have wonderful guests like Dee.
Well, it's
Yes,
always good to
again,
see you guys.
again, thank you again for joining us and for telling your story. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye,
Good
guys.
night.
So thank you for listening to Kev.
And Lil,
Have we met? And here's hoping you have better relationships in your life. Goodbye.
Goodbye.